What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers Studio Series 86 Leader Class Dinobot Swoop, the fifth and final member of the team, and really to nobody's surprise, an absolute banger. I do believe that it's been said that legendary Takara designer Hasui-san led charge when it came around to some of these Dinobots, and if that is true, then that dude definitely deserves a raise. Comparing Swoop alongside his actual on-screen character model, much like the previous four, this figure is simply a home run, and it's without any doubt the Dinobot which I was most looking forward to. As we check out the details, the head sculpt I think looks bang on. Now I have seen some discourse online mentioning that perhaps it's slightly too wide. I really don't know what to say to you guys, at least to myself, this looks exactly how Swoop appeared in the original G1 show, and I was also curious that considering he by far has the most simplistic transformation out of all four, would Takara Tomy still be able to capture the accuracy when it came around to the robot mode, and they absolutely have. This guy's slender, he's lacking any external pieces which should just not be on the robot design. Although, by far the biggest surprise to myself would have to be the amazing metallic silver wings. Now, we know by past experience that Takara Tomy are no strangers to hollowing out the wings, but that is absolutely not the case when it comes around to this guy. And because Swoop easily lacks the mass in comparison to the previous four Dinobots, it's really nice to see the integration of some inbuilt gap fillers, with the exception of maybe one or two hollow voids which are used for transformation and are also very nicely detailed. This guy has been filled out front side to back, which really is just amazing. I believe I mentioned this way back in 2020 when I originally reviewed the Studio Series 86 Hot Rod, but right now Hasbro and Takara Tomy are really making it challenging to recommend Masterpiece over Mainline when you kind of factor in the difference between the pricing, the enjoyability, the complexity. Despite it taking us roughly 4 years to get to this point, I think it is safe to say that he has absolutely been worth the wait. Even in the accessory department, this guy's packing a punch. So up first, we see the return of, I believe, the G1 toy-inspired sword. So this one is specifically designed for Swoop, looks amazing when it comes to detail, and unlike Snarl, surprisingly, has been cast out of solid plastic. There really is no flex to this at all, so you don't have to worry about this maybe warping over time, which I thought was a great improvement. But that's not all, because both Takara Tomy and Hasbro have kind of answered the prayers of collectors in the sense they have included an additional sword intended for a previous Dinobot, that being the king himself, Grimlock. It does just kind of suck that we don't see the inclusion of either Slug or Sludge's sword. I believe the only way to get them officially into the collection will be to pick up the upcoming comic edition Grimlock. But still, this is a fantastic release and really does complete Grimlock, especially when it comes to display. And finally, by far my favourite out of the bunch would be the inclusion of not one but two rocket launchers. When it comes to detail, these look supreme, and they're also blast effect compatible, so alongside the rest of the Dinobots, you can have these guys raining hell down upon the Chaos Bringer. The only downside to these would be the second you flip them to the underside, they are supremely hollow, although in their defense, the way they attach onto the wings, you are never really likely to see this. So to be honest, despite this, these still are really cool. So, posability wise, considering that Swoop is by far the slimmest Dinobot out of the bunch, it really allows you to maximise some of the points of articulation. So, starting off, the head's on a ball joint. This will look up, it will look down, it will tilt side to side and turn both left to right. In addition to that, you can also make use out of the transformation joint, which I think goes hard. I mean, check that out from kind of an underside position. That looks so cool. You can have this guy kind of looking down upon a victim, which he has savagely destroyed to bits. You can take these bad boys and kind of angle these here out to the side, which definitely does allow for a slightly better range when it comes here to the robot mode arms. These will also kick outwards. He's packing a bicep joint. Sadly, only a single jointed elbow, which considering the arms do next to nothing for transformation, I don't think a double joint would have got a miss. But in addition to that, there's also a really solid wrist joint, and despite the beak of the Dino mode, the waist joint goes pretty much uncompromised, and if you really wanted to, you could detach that bad boy, which allows for an even better range. Now, when it comes here to the hips, unfortunately, I do have an issue. So these are packing ratchet joints, although they are really soft. This kind of throws me back to Dinobot Sludge in the sense that I do believe these are going to become loose very quickly, because unfortunately the second I kind of give this guy a shake, those ratchet joints very quickly drop down. But they will also be able to kick backwards almost as far as they could forwards. They can then also kick out to the side. That is a wicked split. The thigh is packing a joint which is super damn tight due to the way this guy transforms. The knee bend too absolutely reigns supreme. That is sick. Not only can this this guy issue a knee kick to the head, but considering that these are the boosters of the Dino Mode, I imagine we'll also be able to cinch their faces off with no problemo at all. And then finally, as we check out the ankles, in addition to rocking backwards due to transformation, they can also rock side to side to an amazing extent. So pretty much packing all of the points of articulation which we did see previously, as you guys I'm sure all know by now. To see what Swoop is truly capable of, now let's put him through the pose test. So, swooping in for some comparisons, to begin with, we have the Power of the Primes Deluxe Class Swoop. Now, I've always been of the opinion that this character has always had quite a simple design. I mean, if you were even to take a look at the original G1 Swoop toy, which is now coming up to be around 40 years old, that was definitely one of the most accurate figures of that time. So, the Power of the Primes version still is packing a punch for a Deluxe Class release, but much like some of the previous Studio Series Dinobots, the brand new version absolutely reigns supreme for so many reasons, but the biggest one being the scale. How can you release the Dinobots, some of the biggest characters from the original G1 show, as deluxe class figures? To myself, it makes no sense at all. This is definitely an update which I think reigns supreme. And I mean, come on, here we have the Voyager class Hot Rod, such a superb figure, the gold standard for Studio Series 86 in my opinion, alongside some of these Dinobots. Hasbro are crushing it right now, and I really cannot wait to see their upcoming Devastator, the Studio Series 86 Voyager class Ironhide. And before we get stuck into the meat and potatoes, here we have the Earthrise Optimus Prime. But it is now time for reinforcements, so let's whack out the big guns. To begin with, we have Dinobot Snarl, Slug, who is by far the biggest out of the bunch due to that fat-ass Triceratops head, Dinobot Sludge, who is easily the meatiest and chunkiest out of the bunch, and then finally, the absolute king himself, we have Grimlock. So as you guys saw from some of those comparisons, Swoop is definitely the smallest out of the bunch, but I still think deserving of the leader class price point. Had they maybe packaged this guy as a Voyager release, I just don't think he would have turned out half as good as he has. For example, there is no way we would have seen any of those extra accessories. I'm almost certain that those wings would have been super hollow, and they definitely would have been lacking that amazing metallic silver and gold paint which is scattered throughout the entire robot design, and would more than likely make him even smaller than he is now. So leader class I definitely think was the way to go for all of these Studio Series Dinobots, because as I've mentioned so many times throughout this video, they create what has to be one of the best mainline sets of all time. So, swooping into this guy's transformation, despite the complexity of some of the previous Dinobots, I will be honest, it is pretty cool to finally have one which is slightly more straightforward. So, for the first step, take a hold here of the forearm, make sure that you take that massive fist and begin to slide it inside that gaping hole. Once that's complete, we can then do exactly the same here for the opposite side, so snap that sucker there into place. Then for the next step, we are going to turn here to the underside of the arm, and there are quite a few tabs and slots which are then going to peg here into the wings. So, try your best to line these bad boys here up, so snap that section into place, spin around here to this side, and as I'm sure you guys would guess, do exactly the same. Now we can turn this sucker around to the back, and here is the money shot of the transformation, because now we are going to begin to completely extend those amazing metallic silver wings. A step which you must make sure to remember would be to take the very tip of the wing and slide it down to the underside. If you don't, unfortunately, they may look a little stubby once you do transform him into Dino Mode. So let's do the same here for this side, completely extend those suckers there outwards, take a hold of that big mighty tip and then snap that there into place. Now we are going to spin this guy here around to the front. You are then going to make sure that you take a hold of the shoulder joint. So this bad boy is then going to swing backwards ever so slightly. Let's do the same here for this side, and hopefully that will then begin to detach away from the actual Pteranodon head sculpt. Now that's complete, we can then take a hold of this piece, begin to pull this sucker downwards. Now is where you are going to want to make use out of that amazing neck joint, because we are going to take the robot mode head and slide it into this big gaping cutout. So make sure that that there is rested into place. We can then snap this into Swoop's forehead, and then for the next step you can take the Dino mode head and completely extend this bad boy here upwards. Once that's complete, we can then take a hold of this component and make sure that it is specifically snapped downwards exactly like this. Now for the next step of the transformation, here is where you are going to want to make use out of these double hinge joints. Now one thing which has always amazed amazes me when it comes to some of these Studio Series Dinobots is how much internal detail is packed on the inside. So make sure that you take this section and begin to swing it here inwards. Let's do exactly the same here for this side. Once you reach this point, as I'm sure you guys would guess, here is where we are then going to combine them directly down the middle. Then for one final step, when it comes here to the torso, you are now going to take the shoulder and the wing and gently hinge it here backwards. This does create for a slightly more dynamic flair once it comes around to the Pteranodon mode. So do the same here for this side. Now for the next step, we can spin this sucker down to the base. So we are going to take a hold of those big mighty heel spurs and just slide these here into the soles of the feet. Now is where you can take the main foot itself and begin to slide this section here down. So do the same here for this side. Now we are going to spin this sucker all the way around here to the top, and as I'm sure you guys would guess, there are quite a few tabs integrated into the base of the toes which are going to slide into these meaty tabs. So make use out of those amazing double jointed knees and just snap that sucker there into place, and do exactly the same here for this side. So, soaring through Cybertron and seeing nothing when it comes to the battlefield.
Me, Swoop, no see nothing.
Here we have Swoop, now fully transformed into his Pteranodon mode. Now, despite the robot modes of all 5 Dinobots being absolute knockouts, they are Dinobots, so I really don't think it's until you get round to their Dino modes that these guys really come out to shine, and much like the previous Dinobots, Swoop looks near perfect to his actual on-screen character render. So, as we check out the details, the head sculpt I think looks amazing. It's brilliant to see the full-blown return of the metallic gold paint. Unfortunately, I did find that was severely underused when it came around to Snarl last time. Even the inside part of the mouth has been fully decked out, and much like the sick missile launchers, there's also a blast effect port embedded in the back of this guy's throat, so you can totally have him charging up, ready to rain hell down upon the Sharkticons. Although by far the money shot when it comes to this guy would have to be the wicked wingspan. To my surprise, this is way bigger than I was expecting, and they've also been fully painted front side to back. Some of the cybernetic details I think are looking sick, and as we check this guy out here from the underside, I actually think that surprisingly he cleans up really well. Initially, I did think he was a little blocky when it came to design, but that was totally my mistake, because this is more or less exactly how Swoop appeared in the original G1 show, and a detail which I thought was single-handedly bonkers would be the integration of these sculpted boosters in the back of this guy. These are the knee joints of the robot mode, so that is such an amazing attention to detail. Even when you flip the fists around when transforming this guy, this section does kind of create an outtake, which I thought was such a great touch. So overall, when it does come around to Dino mode, I'd argue equally as impressive as the robot mode, and the designers also integrated quite a few Easter eggs into this guy, especially when it does come around to articulation. So you can totally hinge the neck downwards so that Cup can tell Swoop only the good parts of the story.
Good part, Cup. Tell Swoop good part.
I definitely think that when it comes around to modern day leader class figures, the Dinobots are by far the gold standard, and with the team now fully complete, it definitely makes me wonder what devastating lineup we could potentially see next. Flying through some dino comparisons, we are once again back at it, this time with the Power of the Primes Deluxe Class Swoop. I kind of look at these two as if they were pizza. So, for example, this here is a takeaway pizza, and this is the pizza that your mum tells you she has at home.
Me, Grimlock, say you full of cesium salami.
Beryllium baloney.
Still pretty decent, but come on, the takeaway one definitely reigns supreme. For some general Autobot comparisons, here we have Hot Rod, and surprisingly, I actually think the scale here is pretty much perfect. The myth, the legend, Earthrise Optimus Prime, and damn, these are the Dinobots that we've been waiting for. Stacked up against Earthrise Optimus Prime, Swoop looks absolutely badass. Again, I can only imagine how much cooler this display is gonna look once they decide to whack out that Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime. And getting stuck into what I'm sure you guys will want to see, let's whack out some Dinobots. So first up we have Leader Class Snarl, Dinobot Slug, and I kind of feel as if though these two are comparable because both of them go from being pretty meaty robots to quite small dinos in comparison to the rest of the team, which is the absolute opposite once we whack out the meatiest of the bunch. Here we have Sludge, and then finally rounding things off with the king himself, here we have Grimlock. Crazy to think that we originally saw this guy way back in 2020 and that it isn't now until 2024 that we now have the completed Dinobots, and damn do they all look amazing in their dino modes. So, wrapping up on this review for the Transformers Studio Series 86 Leader Class Dinobot Swoop. Robot mode wise, easily the best looking swoop that we've ever seen, borderline masterpiece. My real only issue with this guy would be that unfortunately I do find the ratchet joints in the hips to be a little loose. They really do remind me of what we originally saw from Sludge, which is a bit of a shame. Although when it does come around to that Dino mode, he looks simply amazing. The amount of detail, the amount of paintwork they were able to cram, especially into those wings, I really think is a sight to behold. Overall, if you've been collecting any of the past Dinobots, then this is an absolute must-have. These Studio Series Dinobot figures definitely are the gold standard when it comes to modern day leader class figures, and Swoop is a figure that I don't think you'll be disappointed with in the slightest. I would love to get your guys' thoughts down below. What do you think? And out of all of the Dinobots so far, who is your personal favourite? I want to thank you all so much for watching, and until my next review, transform and roll out!